So Josh, let's talk a little bit about those first two deals from maybe analytical approach, but also from the perspective that you guys are a little bit uncommon to the fact that both your deals were off market,
Yep.
from my understanding, and what that was like. And walk us through kind of both those deals from maybe your perspective analytically.
So when we had first started looking for properties, like Josh had said previously, we were looking all over the map. Originally, we were like, we want a 4 unit, we want to live for free, we want great numbers. It just wasn't realistic for the market that we were in. We would obsessively look at properties. A property would be on the market for less than an hour. We would be the first person in there. And then by the end of the day, there were 20 offers. Most of like the top ones were like all cash, 50,000 over asking. Like we were over here with like, hey, we have a 5% conventional loan. And like we just couldn't compete with these bigger investors. So for us, it was really, yes, about getting that deal. And do you want to talk more about the numbers?
Yeah. So, I mean, we were submitting offers left and right, losing and losing. And that's really when the doubt and fear started coming in of like, maybe this isn't in the cards for us. And this is just
Hmm.
a cool idea that other people can do. And so luckily we had a great realtor. And kind of like the 11th hour, her and I were like ready to throw in the towel. He said, hey, just so you guys know, I know a couple and they're like you guys in 10 years. And they are looking to sell their home. They don't want to list it because they would really prefer to sell to a young couple.
And another thing with them too was that they were looking to buy a single family home. They were having baby number two on the way. So they didn't want to have a quick closing. They were looking to have a closing from when it was October to almost January. So they needed more time to look for a house. So maybe conventionally an on market deal, people are like, I'm going to buy something and I want my property.
Hmm.
We were like, yeah, we'll wait until you're ready. Let's make this work. So it's solving other people's problems. So we were willing to be that solution for that.
Yeah, and they had started house hacking, and it was just the two of them, and they had a baby, and they said, "Not a problem. We can keep doing this. We're going to buy another house hack." And then they had a second baby, and the wife was like, we're done. I want a single family in the country." So so we closed on that the week of Christmas 2018. We purchased at 158,000 using a 5% conventional loan. All in with down payment and closing. I think we put down about $14,700. And then yeah, we moved into the downstairs unit. We actually inherited a tenant. The guy who was living upstairs had been there for a long time. The sellers had said, "Hey, he's a great guy. He works a lot. He always pays his rent early." And at that time, we weren't really looking to, have vacancy or anything like that. This was our first foray into real estate.
Right.
So the mortgage on that was 1384, and we were getting $725 from upstairs.
Awesome. So, so you did a conventional on that one. My understanding is the next deal, you went with FHA. Is that correct?
That's
Cool. So
absolutely
talk a
correct.
little about your experience with that and the second deal.
So for the second deal, it also was an off-market deal. Our long-term tenant from our first property got married after a year of us living there. He got married, wanted to move in with his wife. So we were fixing up the apartment. We were able to raise rents, but it just so happened that like we were fixing up the apartment and, someone in our local neighborhood was walking by and we got to talking with them and we had offhandedly mentioned like, yeah, we're looking for another property if you know of anyone. And at the time, he's like, well, I have a property, but I'm not looking to sell. And we were kind of like, that's awesome. But if you change your mind, let us know. And Josh and I are pretty active in our local community. So we like, we're on the community Facebook page. We go to local events just to like network and build those connections. So, 6 months after we had that conversation with him, his position has changed and he was looking to sell. And,
Yeah.
I think because we made that connection, it was really lucky. And, he was willing to sell to us and work out another off market deal that is literally 6 houses down from our first house hack.
Yeah.
So, because we self manage, that makes it very convenient for us too, because we can literally walk from one property to the other.
Yeah, and the big thing too is, I mean, so we love the neighborhood. So to kind of go back to what we were saying, like, you can find a great property in a great neighborhood and have the numbers make sense. And I didn't think that was possible until we got into the neighborhood we were in and we got our first house hack. So we love the neighborhood. The duplex that we now own, we had walked past 100 times and always said, wow, we really admire that. I wonder who owns that. And so yeah, and we spend a lot of time letting people know kind of what we look for, who we are, so on and so forth. And so when the opportunity came up, we were more than happy to solve his problem.
So for the second property, we used a 3.5% conventional loan, or FHA loan, sorry, 3.5% FHA. We had to do that just in terms of funding and what worked for us at the time.
Yep. So I think between closing and down payment, we paid $13,200. We moved into the downstairs unit. And the upstairs is currently rented for $975.
For sure. And one thing, just to highlight with FHA loans, the great thing about them is that they're federally backed, which allows younger couples and people like whether they're couples or not, get funded, whether it's a first or second deal. Because it's a much easier to get qualified for them. And a lot of people mention, PMI and things like that. But from, now Allie and I are buy properties as traditional investors, 20% down and things of that nature. When you factor in the higher interest rate, associated with buying a property as an investor, it pretty much is a wash. The PMI is really just the cost of doing business to be able to buy a property. I mean, there's so many options after that. If you wanted, I mean, we did a 203K loan, and so we ended up refinancing and going conventional and all that. Like, so there are ways, if someone down the road wants to do that. But when you're talking about getting into these neighborhoods, the sort of, the irony in it, I suppose, is that, people say it's too expensive now. Well, they just continue to appreciate and continue to appreciate and continue to appreciate. And the great thing about house hacking is being able to get into a property for such low down, and it doesn't have to be to where you absolutely live for free, but you can live in these neighborhoods, get dramatically reduced rents, what you would be paying for rent in an area like that, and over time the property appreciates in values, rents appreciate, and there are a lot of benefits to buying and holding in these really good areas, and FHA allows you to do that because the restrictions are much less because they're federally backed.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. And that's all the kind of stuff I have up here in my head and know, and the cool thing is too, is right. So it's a great hedge against inflation. So over time, like things will continue to go up in value. Cost of goods and services will continue to rise. Our payment is fixed for the next 30 years. So even though rents will go up, the property value will go up, that price doesn't change unless we change it through a refinance or whatnot. And so, yeah, there's a lot of really cool wealth generators that come from real estate. And for us right now, while not only are we benefiting from those, we're also living for free, which is actually further accelerating our student loan payoff.